We think we know the story? The name Judas Iscariot echoes through history, synonymous with the ultimate betrayal, a dark shadow cast over the most sacred narrative. For nearly 2 millennia, he has been reviled as the disciple who handed Jesus over to his enemies for a mere 30 pieces of silver, a figure of such infamy that his name became a curse. But what if the story we know is incomplete? What if, lurking in the shadows of ancient history, there exists an entirely different account, one that challenges everything we thought we understood about this enigmatic figure? Prepare to have your perceptions shattered as we delve into a hidden gospel that dares to suggest Judas Iscariot was not a traitor but a secret hero chosen by Jesus himself for a divine mission. Judas Iscariot, the very sound of his name conjures images of deceit, greed, and ultimate perfidy. In the traditional Christian narrative, he is the archetype of betrayal, the disciple who shared intimate moments with Jesus, only to deliver him to his executioners with a treacherous kiss. His act is seen as the catalyst for the crucifixion, a pivotal moment of darkness that leads to humanity's salvation. This image has been etched into the collective consciousness through countless sermons, artworks, and literary works, painting Judas as a figure of unadulterated evil, his fate in eternal damnation serving as a stark warning. But is this the entire truth? Could there be complexities to his story that have been deliberately, or perhaps accidentally, obscured by the sands of time? This question lies at the heart of an extraordinary discovery that redefines Judas. The silence surrounding Judas Iscariot's untold story was broken dramatically in the 1970s with the clandestine discovery of an ancient manuscript in a cave in Egypt. This weathered papyrus codex, dating back to the 3rd or 4th century CE, contained a Coptic translation of a gospel that bore a name that would send shockwaves through the academic and religious worlds, the Gospel of Judas. For centuries, this text was known only through brief condemnations by early church fathers, dismissed as a heretical Gnostic fabrication. Its rediscovery and subsequent restoration translation, spearheaded by the National Geographic Society in 2006, brought to light an astonishingly different narrative of Judas, forcing a radical re-evaluation of his character and his relationship with Jesus. The implications of the Gospel of Judas extend far beyond historical curiosity. They touch upon fundamental questions of faith, free will, divine plan, and the very nature of betrayal and redemption. If Judas was not simply a greedy betrayer, but rather an instrument of a divine plan, does it alter our understanding of sin? Does it challenge the traditional narrative of salvation? This ancient text forces us to grapple with the complexities of early Christian thought, revealing a vibrant and often contentious landscape where diverse theological perspectives vied for dominance. Understanding the Gospel of Judas means revisiting entrenched beliefs and embracing the possibility that the story of Jesus and his disciples is far more intricate than we ever imagined. Could Judas have been part of God's plan, fulfilling a necessary role that none of the other disciples could comprehend? Share your thoughts in the comments. In this journey, we will peel back the layers of history and dogma to explore the enigma of Judas Iscariot from multiple perspectives. We will first establish the traditional portrayal of Judas in the canonical Gospels, understanding how his image as the ultimate betrayer was formed. Then we will dive deep into the Gospel of Judas itself, unraveling its Gnostic origins, its radical reinterpretation of Judas's role, and the secret teachings it claims to reveal. We will analyze the key theological and philosophical themes within this rediscovered text, contrasting them with Orthodox Christian beliefs. Finally, we will examine the controversies and reactions ignited by its discovery and reflect on Judas's complex legacy, inviting you to consider whether he was indeed a betrayer or a secret hero fulfilling a divine and solitary mission. Our understanding of Judas Iscariot has been predominantly shaped by the canonical Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which present a remarkably consistent portrayal of him as the betrayer of Jesus. The canonical Gospels of Matthew and Mark paint a vivid picture of Judas Iscariot's pivotal role in Jesus' arrest. In Matthew 26 and Mark 14, the narrative meticulously details the chilling agreement Judas made with the chief priests for 30 pieces of silver. He would deliver Jesus into their hands. The stage for this profound act of betrayal is set at the Last Supper, where Jesus foretells that one of his disciples will betray him, casting a shadow of dread over the meal. The climax arrives in the Garden of Gethsemane. As the torch-wielding crowd approaches, Judas steps forward. He approaches Jesus directly, not with a greeting of affection, but with a predetermined signal. He leans in and his lips make contact with Jesus' cheek. This intimate gesture, a kiss, is precisely the pre-arranged sign that identifies Jesus to the awaiting soldiers and temple guards. It is a moment pregnant with profound irony and transforming an act of seeming closeness into the catalyst for Jesus' apprehension and ultimate crucifixion. This particular detail, the kiss on the cheek, makes the betrayal even more poignant, transforming a universal sign of greeting or affection into a chilling symbol of ultimate perfidy. The accounts in Luke and John add further dimensions to Judas's character, though still within the framework of his betrayal. Luke 22 and John 13 introduce the element of Satan entering Judas, suggesting a demonic influence behind his actions, elevating his treachery to a cosmic struggle. While the canonical Gospels consistently portray his betrayal, only Matthew records Judas's subsequent remorse. In Matthew 27, Ibs attempts to return the 30 pieces of silver, confessing he has sinned by betraying innocent blood. Overwhelmed by guilt, he throws the money into the temple and goes off to hang himself. Acts 1:18 provides an alternatively grim account of his death. These narratives solidify his image as a tragically doomed figure, his life ending in despair and self-destruction, a fitting end for a betrayer. The traditional Christian view of Judas has remained virtually unchanged for centuries. He is seen as the quintessential villain, driven by greed, weakness, or even demonic possession. His betrayal is not merely a historical event, but a profound theological symbol. It serves as a stark warning against apostasy, the dangers of materialism, and the consequences of rejecting divine love. From the early church fathers to medieval mystery plays, and from Renaissance art to modern sermons, Judas's vilified image has been reinforced, serving as a moral lesson and a theological archetype. His name became a byword for treachery, his memory forever stained by the kiss of death. This established narrative forms the bedrock of understanding against which all alternative interpretations must be measured. The unwavering condemnation of Judas Iscariot in Christian tradition begs a profound theological question. If Jesus was divine and his death was predestined as part of God's plan for salvation, then what was Judas's true role? Was he merely a pawn, an unwilling instrument of divine will, or an agent of pure evil who freely chose his path? This tension between divine sovereignty and human free will has fascinated theologians for centuries. The traditional view asserts his free choice and moral culpability. However, the very idea that his act was essential for salvation opens the door for a radically different interpretation, one that suggests his betrayal, far from being a sin, was a necessary, perhaps even sacred act. Was Judas's act predestined, or was it truly a choice of pure evil? The Gospel of Judas is a pivotal text within the election known as the Codex Chacos, which also includes other Gnostic writings. Discovered by Bedouin traders in the late 1970s in a cave near El Minya, Egypt, the Codex itself is written in Coptic, an ancient Egyptian language that used the Greek alphabet. Scholars date the original Greek composition of the Gospel of Judas to the 2nd century CE, making it a contemporary of many other early Christian writings. Its survival is remarkable, given the systematic suppression of Gnostic texts by the burgeoning Orthodox Church. The arduous process of acquiring, preserving, and translating the fragile papyrus over decades finally culminated in its public unveiling by the National Geographic Society in 2006, bringing this long-lost, controversial narrative back into the light. To understand the Gospel of Judas, one must first grasp the fundamental tenets of Gnosticism, a diverse spiritual movement prevalent in the early centuries CE that profoundly diverged from what would become Orthodox Christianity. Gnosticism is characterized by its emphasis on gnosis, a secret, intuitive, or mystical knowledge that is believed to be the key to salvation, rather than faith or good works. Gnostics typically held a dualistic worldview, positing a stark distinction between perfect, a noble, true God, and a lesser, often ignorant, creator deity, the demiurge who fashioned the flawed material world. They believed that humanity contained divine sparks trapped within physical bodies, and salvation lay in acquiring the special knowledge needed to escape this material prison and return to the spiritual realm. This worldview often led to a rejection of the physical world and orthodox Christian doctrines like the full humanity of Christ or the resurrection of the body, which is why Gnostic texts were largely suppressed by the early church. In stark contrast to the canonical Gospels, the Gospel of Judas portrays Judas Iscariot not as a betrayer, but as Jesus' most enlightened and trusted disciple, the only one capable of truly understanding his profound teachings. Throughout the text, Jesus is shown confiding in Judas, sharing secret knowledge that the other disciples, depicted as shallow and misunderstanding, are unable to grasp. Jesus even laughs at the other disciples' conventional piety, reserving his deepest truths for Judas. He tells Judas, "You will exceed all of them, for you will sacrifice the man that cloves me." This pivotal line suggests that Judas is chosen to perform a sacred act that will free Jesus' divine spirit from his physical body. an act of profound obedience rather than treachery, elevating Judas to a uniquely privileged position among the apostles. The most radical and challenging aspect of the Gospel of Judas is its reinterpretation of the betrayal. Here, the act of handing Jesus over to the authorities is not a sin, but a sacred and necessary component of Jesus' divine plan. Jesus himself instructs Judas to betray him, revealing that by facilitating his death, Judas will enable Jesus' divine spirit to shed its earthly vessel and return to the true, supreme God. "You will help me to achieve this," Jesus tells Judas, "for you will sacrifice the man that clothes me." This changes the entire narrative from one of treachery and damnation to one of ultimate obedience and self-sacrifice. In this Gnostic framework, Judas is not the villain but the divinely chosen instrument for the liberation of Jesus' true spiritual self, making his act of betrayal a profound, if tragic, act of heroism. Could betrayal in certain divine contexts be a heroic act rather than a sin? A central theme in the Gospel of Judas, deeply rooted in Gnostic thought, is the paramount importance of secret knowledge or gnosis as the pathway to salvation. Unlike the canonical Gospels, where salvation is achieved through faith in Jesus' sacrifice and resurrection, this text suggests that a select few, like Judas, receive exclusive, hidden revelations from Jesus that unlock the true nature of reality and the divine. Judas is portrayed as the only disciple who possesses the capacity to grasp these profound truths, making him Jesus' unique confidant. This emphasis on secret knowledge sets it apart from Orthodox Christian theology, which emphasizes a message accessible to all believers through publicly revealed Scripture and the Holy Spirit. The Gospel of Judas, like many Gnostic texts, expresses a profound disdain for the material world. Gnosticism posits that the physical universe and the human body are flawed creations of a lesser, ignorant deity, not the perfect, transcendent, true God. Humanity's true essence, the divine spark, is trapped within this imperfect physical prison. In this context, Jesus' crucifixion is not a means of atoning for sin, but rather a divinely orchestrated event to liberate his divine spirit from its earthly body, allowing it to ascend back to the pure spiritual realm. Judas's act of betrayal is therefore recast as a necessary act to help Jesus transcend the limitations of his physical form, facilitating his spiritual liberation from the constraints of the material world. The Gospel of Judas explicitly distinguishes between a supreme, true God and a lesser creator deity, a core Gnostic belief known as the demiurge. This demiurge, often identified with the Old Testament God, is seen as imperfect and responsible for the creation of the flawed material universe. The true God is transcendent, beyond human comprehension, and completely distinct from the Creator God of the Old Testament. Jesus in this Gospel is revealed as an emissary of the true God, sent to impart secret knowledge that will enable divine sparks within humanity to escape the demiurge's material prison. Judas's unique mission, therefore, becomes intimately linked to this Gnostic cosmology, as he plays a critical role in helping Jesus fulfill his mission to reveal the true God and facilitate spiritual liberation from the corrupt material realm. In the Gospel of Judas, the act of handing Jesus over to the authorities is portrayed not as a cursed act of treachery, but as a preordained and sacrificial mission that only Judas, the most enlightened among the disciples, could comprehend and execute. Jesus tells Judas, "You will be cursed by generations, and you will come to reign over them." This seemingly contradictory statement implies that Judas's earthly vilification is a necessary part of his divine destiny, a temporary burden for a greater purpose. He is not damned, but rather elevated to a unique position, destined for spiritual triumph by facilitating Jesus' escape from his physical body. This radical reinterpretation challenges centuries of theological understanding, turning the traditional villain into a tragic but ultimately heroic figure, whose sacrifice was essential for Jesus' spiritual ascension. If Judas's act was predestined and sacred, does that change your view of his destiny? The early Christian church, from its nascent stages, actively rejected and condemned Gnostic writings, including texts like the Gospel of Judas. Church fathers like Irenaeus of Lyons, writing in the late 2nd century CE, explicitly denounced the Gospel of Judas as a heretical fabrication, attributing it to a sect called the Cainites, who paradoxically revered Cain, the serpent in Eden, and Judas as agents of divine wisdom. The primary reasons for this rejection were clear. Gnostic texts fundamentally contradicted core Christian doctrines such as the full humanity and divinity of Jesus, the bodily resurrection, the nature of God as both creator and redeemer, and the path to salvation through faith rather than secret knowledge. The widespread consensus among early Christian communities was to adhere to apostolic teachings and texts that aligned with Orthodox Christology. leading to the suppression and eventual disappearance of Gnostic Gospels for centuries. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas in the 21st century ignited fervent debates among modern scholars. While some scholars view the text as a fascinating and authentic glimpse into the diverse landscape of early Christian thought, acknowledging its historical value as a Gnostic document, others remain more skeptical about its origins, interpretations, and overall significance. Debates revolve around the precise dating of the original Greek composition, the nuances of its Coptic translation, and whether its portrayal of Judas has any historical basis or is purely a theological construct of a specific Gnostic sect. The text's unique perspective on Jesus, Judas, and Gnosticism has sparked a vibrant academic discussion, pushing the boundaries of how we understand the early centuries of Christianity and the complex process of canon formation. The public fascination with the Gospel of Judas reached a fever pitch in 2006, when the National Geographic Society, which funded its restoration and translation, unveiled the text to the world. Media outlets around the globe sensationalized the discovery, often presenting it as a direct challenge to conventional Christianity, a lost gospel that could rewrite history. News headlines declared Judas a hero or a victim of early church politics. This media frenzy, while undoubtedly raising awareness, sometimes oversimplified the complex theological and historical nuances of the text, leading to misunderstandings about its nature and its relationship to the canonical Gospels. Nonetheless, the public's immediate and widespread interest underscored a deep-seated curiosity about hidden histories and alternative narratives within religious traditions. The theological implications of the Gospel of Judas are profound and challenging for traditional Christianity. If Judas was acting on Jesus' instructions to facilitate his death, it redefines betrayal, sin, and atonement. It also challenges the traditional understanding of Jesus' suffering and sacrifice as a redemptive act for humanity's sins, instead portraying his death as a liberation of his divine spirit from a material prison. Furthermore, the Gnostic dualism and the concept of a lesser creator God fundamentally diverge from the Trinitarian God of Orthodox Christianity. The Gospel of Judas does not undermine the canonical Gospels from a historical perspective, as it is a much later text, but it certainly forces a deeper theological inquiry into the historical diversity of early Christian thought and the nature of God, Christ, and salvation. Does this gospel undermine Christianity or simply offer a different perspective on early Christian thought? The legacy of Judas Iscariot in traditional thought is unequivocally one of profound vilification. For nearly 2,000 years, he has stood as the ultimate symbol of betrayal, avarice, and spiritual darkness. His name is a byword for treachery, his actions a cautionary tale woven into the very fabric of sermons, passion plays, and Christian art. From Dante's Inferno, where Judas is depicted in the lowest circle of hell, perpetually chewed by Satan, to countless paintings and sculptures depicting his desperate remorse or his hanging. The image of Judas as the quintessential villain is deeply ingrained. This enduring portrayal highlights the severity of his perceived crime against Jesus and underscores his role as a figure whose actions directly led to the crucifixion, the ultimate act of human sin that necessitated divine redemption. In stark contrast, the Gospel of Judas unveils a radical reinterpretation of Judas's legacy, elevating him from infamous betrayer to a divinely chosen enlightened instrument. In this Gnostic narrative, Judas is presented as the only disciple capable of comprehending Jesus' true spiritual nature and the necessity of his physical death for his spiritual liberation. His act of betrayal is thus transformed into an act of obedience, sacrifice, and profound understanding. He is not driven by greed or malice, but by a unique spiritual insight and a divine mandate. This Gnostic Judas is not a villain but a solitary hero, tasked with a difficult and misunderstood mission that none of the other disciples could fathom, ensuring Jesus' ascent to the true, supreme God. Reconciling these two dramatically different portrayals of Judas Iscariot presents a significant challenge. The traditional canonical view emphasizes Judas' free will and moral culpability, while the Gospel of Judas suggests a predetermined sacred role. Can both perspectives coexist? Perhaps. One approach is to view the canonical Judas as a warning about the dangers of human weakness, greed, and the capacity for betrayal, a moral archetype relevant to all. The Gnostic Judas, on the other hand, can be seen as a fascinating theological exploration of predestination, secret knowledge, and the complexities of divine will, reflecting a distinct strand of early Christian thought. It is possible to appreciate the historical and theological insights offered by both, without necessarily accepting one as exclusively true in a definitive sense, allowing for a nuanced understanding of this enduring enigma. Can you reconcile these two drastically different portrayals of Judas, or must you choose one? Judas Iscariot's compelling and controversial story has transcended theological debates and found its way into various facets of modern culture, often challenging or re-examining his traditional villainous image. From literary works to film and theater, artists have explored the psychological complexities of Judas, portraying him not merely as a two-dimensional antagonist, but as a deeply conflicted character, perhaps driven by misguided zeal, misunderstanding, or even a desperate love for Jesus. The rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar, for instance, presents a sympathetic Judas, burdened by his predetermined role in the Passion. This modern engagement with Judas reflects a broader cultural fascination with anti-heroes and the exploration of multifaceted motivations behind seemingly evil acts, inviting audiences to question preconceived notions and delve deeper into the human condition. How do you see him? The Gospel of Judas, with its radical reinterpretation of Judas Iscariot, prompts profound spiritual and philosophical reflections that extend beyond the historical figure. It forces us to confront the universal themes of betrayal and redemption from an entirely new angle. If Judas's act was part of a divine plan, does it challenge our conventional understanding of sin and forgiveness? Does it suggest that even acts traditionally seen as ultimate evils can serve a greater, redemptive purpose within a larger cosmic narrative? This perspective invites us to consider the complexities of moral responsibility and the possibility of an ultimate divine purpose that transcends human judgment, fostering a more nuanced understanding of good, evil, and the path to spiritual liberation. Central to the debate surrounding the Gospel of Judas, and indeed many ancient texts, is the profound theological question of divine will versus human free will. If Judas' betrayal was predestined and even orchestrated by Jesus, as the Gospel of Judas suggests, what does that imply about his autonomy and moral culpability? Does it mean that free will is an illusion in the face of an overarching divine plan? This echoes long-standing philosophical and theological discussions about determinism and human agency. The Gospel of Judas intensifies this debate, forcing us to consider whether individuals are merely instruments of divine providence, or whether their choices, even those leading to suffering, are truly their own, carrying the full weight of personal responsibility and accountability. The resurgence of texts like the Gospel of Judas has also illuminated the enduring appeal of Gnosticism in the modern world. In an era often marked by spiritual seeking, disillusionment with traditional institutions, and a desire for deeper, more personal meaning, Gnostic ideas resonate with some individuals. The emphasis on secret knowledge, direct revelation, and the possibility of a personal spiritual awakening that transcends material limitations can be compelling. For some, these ancient Gnostic texts offer an alternative spiritual path, a way to reconcile perceived inconsistencies in traditional dogma, or a framework for understanding personal experiences beyond conventional religious frameworks. Are they a threat or an enrichment to faith? Regardless of whether one accepts the Gospel of Judas as historically or theologically authoritative, its existence and rediscovery offer profound lessons for today's believers and seekers. It encourages us to approach ancient texts and religious narratives with a critical yet open mind, recognizing that the past was far more diverse and complex than often presented. It challenges us to embrace ambiguity, question easy answers, and engage with difficult questions about faith, purpose, and the nature of reality. The story of Judas, from any perspective, serves as a powerful reminder that truth can be multifaceted and that genuine spiritual growth often involves in confronting challenging narratives and reevaluating long-held beliefs. What profound lesson, if any, do you take away from exploring the different facets of Judas's story? The journey into the Gospel of Judas reveals not a simple tale, but a profound mystery. It stands as a testament to the incredible diversity of early Christian thought, reminding us that the first centuries of Christianity were a crucible of competing ideas and theological perspectives. This ancient Gnostic text, long suppressed and considered lost, has emerged to challenge centuries of understanding, presenting a Judas Iscariot who was not merely a villain but a figure of unique significance, chosen by Jesus for a sacred, albeit painful, mission. It forces us to re-examine our assumptions about betrayal, divine will, and the very nature of redemption, enriching our appreciation for the complexities of religious history. So, after exploring the traditional narrative and the radical reinterpretation offered by the Gospel of Judas, the central question remains: was Judas Iscariot a traitor, betrayer, or a secret hero? The answer, perhaps, lies not in a definitive verdict, but in the enduring complexity of his character. The traditional view offers a stark moral lesson about treachery and its consequences, while the Gnostic perspective invites us to consider a divine plan that might encompass what humans perceive as dark acts. Ultimately, the mystery of Judas Iscariot continues to captivate and provoke, reminding us that even in the most infamous figures, there can be layers of meaning yet to be fully understood. The rediscovery of texts like the Gospel of Judas underscores the immense power of ancient manuscripts and archaeological finds to reshape our understanding of history, religion, and human spirituality. These hidden texts remind us that the past is not static but a dynamic landscape awaiting further revelation. They offer invaluable glimpses into alternative interpretations and movements that once thrived alongside, and sometimes in opposition to, what became orthodox traditions. Exploring these apocryphal works can deepen our appreciation for the rich tapestry of human spiritual experience and the ongoing quest for divine knowledge, inviting us to look beyond the familiar and embrace the unexpected. Thank you for joining us on this compelling journey into the enduring mystery of Judas Iscariot. We hope this exploration of the Gospel of Judas has challenged your perceptions, sparked new questions, and deepened your appreciation for the intricate tapestry of religious history. We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you lean towards the traditional view of Judas, or has the Gnostic perspective shifted your understanding? Your engagement fuels our discussions. If you found this video thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into biblical mysteries and historical enigmas. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the hidden narratives that shape our world.